We've all seen the corporate ladder, a CEO at the top, a board of directors below, then an endless cascade of managers, departments, and employees at the bottom. It's a structure that's been around for centuries, and for many of us, it feels a little outdated. It's a model built on top-down authority, where information is guarded and power is concentrated in the hands of a few. But what if a company could exist without a CEO, without a board, without any central authority figure at all? What if instead a company's rules were just code? Are its decisions made by collective vote? And it's the money held in a transparent treasury visible to everyone? This isn't some anarcho-capitalist fever dream. This is a DAO, or a Decentralized Autonomous Organization. The word sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's a real, functioning model being built on Web 3. Today, GENSHIFT is asking a big question. Is a DAO just a technical curiosity, or could it be the ultimate disruptor, the beginning of the end of the corporation as we know it? Get ready to rethink everything you know about business and power. Hit that subscribe button now to join us in decoding the technologies shaping our world. One, from pyramid to network, comparing DAOs and corporations. To understand the radical promise of a DAO, we first have to deconstruct the system it seeks to replace. The traditional corporation is a pyramid. Power and information flow from the top down, cascading through layers of management before reaching the people who do the work. This hierarchical structure is familiar, but it comes with deep-seated problems that many of us feel every day. It can be slow, bureaucratic, and stifle innovation, as new ideas get lost in a maze of approvals. It often creates information silos, where departments act in their interest rather than for the company as a whole. For many, especially in a generation that values flexibility, purpose, and a healthy work-life balance over climbing the corporate ladder, this rigid model feels fundamentally broken. This structure is built on a specific model of trust. You trust the people at the top, the CEO, the board, to make the right decisions. Information is an asset to be controlled, and power is delegated, not shared. Now imagine flipping that model on its head. Instead of a rigid pyramid, picture a flexible, decentralized network. This is the core idea of a DAO. In this model, there is no CEO at the center. Power isn't concentrated. It's distributed among all its members across the globe. Decisions are not handed down from above. They are proposed and voted on by the community itself. This isn't just about getting rid of bosses. It's a fundamental re-architecture of trust itself. In a DAO, trust is not placed in a fallible human authority. Instead, it's placed in transparent, open-source code that runs on a blockchain. The rules of the organization are visible to everyone and cannot be changed by a single person. Information isn't a guarded asset. It's a public good that flows horizontally across the entire network. This is why DAOs are a native Web3 concept. They are enabled by technology that allows for verifiable, decentralized trust without intermediaries. Of course, the idea of a flat organization isn't entirely new. Companies like Zappos and Medium have famously experimented with getting rid of managers, but often with mixed results. These experiments frequently ran into a classic problem known as the tyranny of structurelessness, where the absence of formal rules led to hidden hierarchies and decision-making chaos. A DAO is an attempt to solve this very problem. It seeks to create a flat organization that isn't structureless, but rather one whose structure is defined by explicit, automated, and community-agreed-upon rules. It's a network, but a network with a transparent and collectively enforced operating system. 2. How DAOs work. The 3 pillars. So how does this network-based organization function? How does a group of strangers from around the world manage money and make decisions without a single leader in charge? It all comes down to 3 interconnected pillars that form a self-reinforcing loop of automated governance. The first pillar is the smart contract. Think of a smart contract as the DAO's constitution, or its corporate bylaws, but written in computer code and stored on a blockchain. These contracts define the fundamental rules of the organization. What the DAO's purpose is, how voting works, what percentage of votes is needed to pass a proposal, and how funds can be spent. Because they live on a blockchain, these rules are transparent for anyone to inspect and, crucially, they are self-executing. This means they automatically enforce the outcomes of votes without needing a human to intervene, making the process both efficient and tamper-proof. The rules can't be secretly changed by a backroom committee. Altering the foundational code requires a formal vote by the entire community. The second pillar is tokens and voting. To become a member of a DAO and participate in its governance, you typically need to acquire the DAO's native governance token. These tokens are much more than just a digital asset. They represent a revolutionary convergence of three distinct corporate functions. First, they are like a share, representing a stake or ownership in the organization. Second, they are like a ballot, granting you the right to vote on proposals that direct the DAO's future. And third, they can sometimes function as a currency, used for payments or accessing services within the DAO's ecosystem. Most DAOs operate on a one-token, one-vote model, where the more tokens you hold, the more voting power you have. When a member wants to propose an action, say funding a new project, they submit it to the community. The other token holders then cast their votes, and if the proposal meets the threshold defined in the smart contract, the decision is locked in. This brings us to the third and final pillar, the transparent treasury. A DAO's funds aren't sitting in a traditional bank account controlled by a CFO. Instead, they are held in a collective digital wallet on the blockchain, often a multi-signature wallet that requires approval from multiple parties before any funds can be moved. This entire treasury is publicly viewable. Anyone, anywhere, can see how much money the DAO has, where it came from, and every single transaction that goes in or out. This radical transparency eliminates the possibility of opaque financial management and ensures accountability. These three pillars create a closed, automated loop. The smart contract sets the rules for the treasury. The tokens provide the voting power to make decisions about the treasury, and the only way to change the smart contract itself is through another token-based vote. This self-governing, self-executing cycle is what makes a DAO truly autonomous. It's an organization designed to run itself, based on a foundation of code that everyone agreed to. 3. The good, the bad, and the ugly is the DAO Utopia. The vision is compelling, a truly democratic organization, globally accessible, transparent, and with incentives perfectly aligned, where every member shares in the success. It sounds like a workplace utopia, a direct answer to the frustrations with opaque, top-down corporate power. This powerful idea is so appealing that it often creates a halo effect, a psychological bias where the initial excitement for a new technology can blind us to its practical flaws and human complexities. But when we look past the hype, the reality of DAOs is far more complicated, revealing that on-chain governance is still fundamentally human governance. The first major crack in the utopian facade is voter apathy. Despite the promise of democracy, participation rates in many DAOs are shockingly low. Empirical studies show that in many cases, fewer than 10% of eligible token holders vote on proposals. One analysis of 200 top DAOs found an average participation rate of just 20%, with major platforms like Uniswap seeing turnout as low as 3.3%. When a tiny fraction of members are making all the decisions, it severely undermines the claim of being a decentralized, community-led organization. This leads directly to the second, and perhaps most critical problem, the whale problem. In a one-token, one-vote system, those with the most tokens have the most power. This means wealthy individuals or venture capital firms, known as whales, can accumulate enough tokens to dominate the voting process, effectively creating the very same centralized power structures that DAOs were meant to eliminate. Instead of a democracy, many DAOs risk becoming a plutocracy, where the wealthiest participants call the shots, sometimes against the interests of the wider community. Then there's the ugly side, the existential risks that can bring a DAO to its knees. The most famous cautionary tale is the 2016 project known simply as the DAO. It was one of the first major DAOs and raised an astonishing $150 million, holding about 14% of all Ethereum in circulation at the time. But a vulnerability in its smart contract code was exploited by an attacker who began draining millions of dollars from its treasury. The incident sparked a crisis. The core philosophy of a DAO is that code is law. The rules in the smart contract are absolute. The attacker even argued they were acting legally, according to the flawed code. The only way to save the funds was for the leaders of the Ethereum network to perform a hard fork, a manual, centralized intervention to roll back the entire blockchain's history. This act, while saving investors money, shattered the illusion of pure, autonomous, trustless governance. It proved that in a real crisis, the trustless system required a massive trust-based intervention from a handful of humans. Finally, there is a massive, often overlooked risk: legal ambiguity. Most DAOs operate without a formal legal structure. In the eyes of the law in many jurisdictions, including the US, this means they can be treated as general partnerships. The implication is terrifying. Every single token-holding member could be held personally and unlimitedly liable for the DAO's debts and legal troubles. This legal gray area remains one of the single biggest barriers to mainstream adoption. 4. Beyond crypto, the future of work and collaboration. After navigating the minefield of challenges, it's easy to be cynical. But to dismiss DAOs as a failed experiment would be to miss their true potential. The most exciting applications of the DAO model aren't necessarily about replacing trillion-dollar corporations, but about enabling new forms of collective action that were previously too difficult or expensive to coordinate. It's a powerful toolkit for the future of work, especially for a generation that values flexibility, community, and the creator economy. Consider the world of freelancing. Instead of individuals competing against each other on platforms that take a hefty cut, a DAO can function as a freelancer guild. Groups of developers, writers, or designers can pool their talent, collectively bid on large projects, share resources, and distribute profits transparently. Organizations like Raid Guild and Dorg are pioneering this model, giving independent workers the collective bargaining power of a firm without the rigid hierarchy. Then there are investment clubs. Traditionally, venture capital has been an exclusive world. Investment DAOs democratize this process, allowing groups of people to pool their funds and collectively invest in anything from tech startups to digital art. Projects like the DAO, which is legally wrapped as a US limited liability company, and Flamingo DAO, which focuses on collecting high-value NFTs, allow members to vote on investment decisions, giving them access to opportunities once reserved for the ultra-wealthy. Perhaps the most impactful use case lies in the nonprofit sector. Charitable giving is often plagued by a lack of transparency, with donors unsure of how their money is being spent. A nonprofit DAO can solve this by putting its entire treasury and all its spending on the blockchain for public audit. Donors can become members and vote directly on which projects receive funding, ensuring that resources are allocated according to the community's will. Big Green DAO, started by Kimball Musk, and Ukraine DAO, which raised millions for humanitarian aid, have demonstrated the power of this model for social impact. So, is the DAO the end of the corporation? The nuanced answer is no, not yet, but it represents a powerful new organizational blueprint for the digital age. Corporations are still incredibly effective at centralized execution and scaling proven business models. DAOs, on the other hand, excel at decentralized coordination and rapid experimentation. They are a proof of concept for how to build trust and distribute power without a central authority, offering a toolkit for a future where work is more flexible, collaborative, and community-owned. Conclusion. From the cracking corporate pyramid to the complex, challenging, but powerful new blueprint of the DAO, we've seen a radical experiment in rethinking power. This isn't just a technological shift, it's a sociological one, moving the source of trust from a handful of executives to a community united by code. While the utopian vision of a perfectly democratic, autonomous organization is still far from reality, the DAO has proven itself to be more than a curiosity. It's a new organizational primitive for an increasingly digital and decentralized world. It forces us to ask fundamental questions about how we collaborate, create value, and share power. So, what do you think? Is a future of decentralized organizations a utopian ideal or a practical next step? Could you ever see yourself working in a DAO? Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below. We want to hear from every perspective. And if you're ready to keep exploring the future of tech and society, don't forget to subscribe to GENSHIFT for more insights that will challenge your thinking.